I started this quilt project and it was wrong. Not bad, just not working for what I wanted. I had a choice. Leave it and make something different for my new nephew, or channel my inner Tim Gunn and make it work my way. Spoiler alert, I chose door number 2, and I'm going to show you exactly how I give myself permission to be the boss of my own quilting. Hi, I'm Amy and I make things. Today I'm making a case for why you should be the boss of your own quilting. Because this project, it needed some unconventional decisions, and I'm going to show you exactly how I made it work my way. Let me take you behind the scenes and show you exactly what I did, the problem I was facing, the decisions I made, and how I actually made it work. Okay, I mentioned that I have a new grandnephew coming in March, and so of course I need a baby quilt. Well, I have the start of a baby quilt. Let's see, here we go. But the problem is it's a weird size, all right? So to get the colors to line up the way I wanted, it's 36 by 60, which is a weird size, right? So what I'm going to do is show you how I'm going to fix it, show you how I'm going to make it work. And then, of course, it won't fit on my backing when I make it a little wider. So I am going to adjust the backing as well. I'll bring you along, explain how I'm doing it all, and have a Tim Gunn moment and make it work, right? Because I love this quilt. I love that it's rainbow. It's all the colors. And I think it'll be fun. And I am excited to hand quilt it. So I'll also show you how I prep this quilt for hand quilting. And the first thing I need to do is add some borders to the side. Let's walk over here. You're going to see my messy studio behind me. All my dirty little secrets of behind the scenes, but that's okay. All right, so I have a bolt of red and white polka dot because of course I do. Because I do. I love it. I put it in everything, and I think that's what I'm going to use to make the side borders. Yes, it is. And I am going to cut it lengthwise so I don't have to have any seams in the side. And let's do that now. Here's a better view of the quilt, well, half the quilt. And you can see it's just not very wide at all. But it is rather long. So I am going to add, I think, 4 inches to either side, and I can trim that down here, and that'll look like 3 inches. I'm going to add 3 inches. Look at there. I like that. That's a good balance. I'm going to add 3 inches to each side and see how it goes from there. So I will cut those now, and like I say, I will cut them lengthwise so that I don't have to have a horizontal seam in the side. Also, by cutting them lengthwise, it will help keep my quilt, which is certainly not square. It'll help square it up a little bit. Family knows and loves that this red and white is my signature, so that will be special to them. All right, here we go. A little ASMR. Fabric often is wound. Look. You can see when it gets folded around the bolt, sometimes it gets off grain, which is why I tear it on the edge. That's not always the best practice, but knowing I have plenty of this, it's easy, and it gives me a straight of grain line, especially since I'm working with these long lengthwise pieces. Now, if you have a fabric that's printed, well, I mean, this is printed, but if you have a fabric with a print that needs to be aligned, sometimes you will find that your print is not printed square. I would cut to the print in that case because that is what's going to, that's what people are going to see. If you cut straight of grain and your print is not printed correctly, people are going to see that it's off kilter, and unless you're Ian, off kilter is not necessarily a good thing. If you're Ian, Off Quilter's an amazing thing. I'll link his channel down below. You are not the ruler today. Gonna go back to my handy dandy, guys. This is my Fisker's ruler that I got at Cloth World, not even Joann's, before it was Joann's. Rest in peace, Joann's. Fisker's ruler with the kit, the mat and the rotary blade and the kit. I think I still have my rotary cutter in the drawer over there somewhere. But this is what I got many, many years ago, and it's still good. So what did I say? I said 3 inches, right? So I'm going to cut these at 3.5 to allow for the seam allowance. There we go. That's 2 strips, 3.5. Excellent. And this will all get used. I'll use it for binding. I'll use it for, well, everything. I put it in everything. All right. So now I'm going to attach these. Oh, I need a piece for the backing because I think I'm going to split it up the middle and do an insertion piece. Okay, now for the backing, I need this backing to be about 6 or 7 inches wider. I don't need the full, 4 inches all the way around that you need for long arming because I am hand quilting it. So I just need a little extra room to groove. My tolerances can be a little tighter. I'm going to cut a piece of fabric and just see what we can do. All right, for the backing, I could split it up the center and put the piece right in the middle. I don't want to do that. I want to put it offset a little bit so that it looks like it was designed and not like it was an accident. Not that going straight up the center isn't great. I just, for this purpose, since this is more of just a solid plain field of fabric, I'm going to offset it by about 1/3. So I'm going to cut it and we'll get to work. First thing I'm going to do is shorten up my fabric because this is about 4 yards of fabric and I only need 2. Again with the tearing. And that's got a really strong selvage. I'm going to just clip it. Helps if you open your rotary blade. I love this Moda cross weave. The only problem with any of the cross weaves, they are super, super thready. For me, totally worth it. But you know what? I'm going to tear it again. I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to. Where it's going to show I shouldn't. So, how about right there? I'm tearing down the lengthwise piece. And now I will go press this edge. See, thready, guys, super thready. I'll go press this edge and then I will put my red and white polka dots in there and have the backing ready to go. And then we'll talk about, what will we talk about? Oh, how I baste. Well, I don't know. I haven't had any coffee yet this morning, guys. We'll talk about how I baste for hand quilting. Okay, now how many of you laughed when I said I was going to press that edge before I sewed the fabric in? Who believed me? I didn't even believe me. Yeah, because I'm not. It's fine. If it were egregious, I would do it. But this fabric is rather thick, and so it's going to hold its edge. So I'm going to put that insertion in the backing now, and then I'll put the borders on the quilt, and we'll talk about basting. Now, I am going to sew with this piece, this torn piece on top, and then I can just flatten it out as I go because I know the one underneath is cut. And this fabric is like pre-starched, this red and white. It's a little crispy, so it'll stay nice and flat. And that'll work very well. Would it be faster if I pressed it and pinned it? Faster to sew, maybe faster to actually execute, probably about the same. So I'm opting for not pinning because that's how I roll. All right, so now what I have is a backing fabric with this offset stripe in it. Now, I will press that. I will press that, but not until after I apply the borders to the quilt, and then I'll press everything at once for efficiency's sake. So let's do that now. I'm just going to be careful of my seams as I go, that they're not flipping up under there, but that'll be easy enough. This is something I do very often. I'll put borders on two sides of a quilt to balance it out. And I know a lot of people don't do that, or maybe it's less common. But if it needs borders on the sides to balance out the shape of the quilt and not on the top and the bottom, I'm the boss of my quilting, so that's what I'm going to do because that's what works for me. So I'll go ahead and get this other border on the side, then I'll press it and trim it and all the things. And then we'll talk about how I'm going to baste this quilt for hand quilting, because I don't always do it the same way. Okay, now I am waiting for my iron to heat up. And while I do that, I will talk to you about how I'm going to baste this. And I also wanted to show you, I will also press this. It's a piece of fabric that I need for another project. It's been laying on my pressing board until I had a few more things to press. So it was just there, ready, waiting for me. I'll go ahead and get that done while I'm here. So for basting for hand quilting, hang on. Okay, the iron's ready, but it'll wait for me for a minute. Basting for hand quilting. A lot of times what I do is I will go ahead and load it on the long arm and do some stay stitching. Like this one is it's half square triangles, but it's in relative squares. So I would do some just stitch in the ditch along the squares. And I think I may do that. Depends on how much time I have this morning, because I'd like to take it with me to my bee meeting. It's 8:30 now. Oh, hang on. Okay, the kids needed something. Where was it? Oh, it depends on how much time I've got. It's 8:40 now. B is at 10. We'll see. Often when I don't want to mess with the long arm, or when there's something else on it, or when I'm really short of backing, like I might be this time, I will just spray baste it and then do my stay stitching on my domestic machine here with the walking foot. Same deal. So what that will do, I could rely on spray basting for the whole thing. But guys, I wad it up, I crunch it up. I don't trust the spray basting to hold for the whole process. And then I end up with puckers, and then I end up frustrated. So what I'll do is I'll spray baste generally, or you could glue baste if you do the Elmer's glue basting. That's very cool. I need to get one of those sauce squeezers that Kathy showed in her video recently, which I'll link below. Great idea. Very thin stream of Elmer's glue. Fantastic. So if you do that, that works too. There again, I'm not going to trust it to hold through my whole process of wadded up quilting, because I don't quilt in a hoop. I just quilt in my hands and in my lap. So I like the security of it being stitched, at least in some places. Then I'm not going to have to completely redo it. It just gives it some stability. It gives me a great deal of security. So I will see what I have time for after I get this pressed, and see how tight I am on that backing actually may be the determining factor. And if I'm tight on the backing, I'm just going to go pull out the can of June Taylor spray baste and get going. Okay, it turns out I do have enough backing extra that I can load it on the long arm and stay stitch it that way. So that's what I'm gonna do. Don't look at my messy house, y'all. Anywho, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do that, and then I'll show you how it turns out. I had just enough batting left on the end of my bolt to fit this quilt. Perfection. I'm super excited. Now I'm going to baste it on the long arm, and then I will show you how I pull threads and the materials I use for hand quilting. All right, let me get going. Okay, so I've got the quilt loaded and basted down across the top here and down one side. And then what I'm going to do, let's see, these blocks are, I'm just going to go like in this, they are these little broken dishes blocks. So this is one block. So I'm just going to go through here. I'm just going to baste it, y'all. It's not, I'm just going to stitch in the ditch. It's not really basting at this point. It's actual regular size stitches. I am just going to stitch in the ditch so that it is secure. I will come across this top line right here for the border, and I'm just going to wing it, see how it goes, and then we'll talk about threads and hand quilting because that's my favorite part. One more thing, guys. Look how tight I was on that backing. I have not a lot to spare. So, worked out well, easy peasy. Okay, because I am hand quilting this, I am going to just trim it with scissors, all right? Because I'll leave a rough edge, you know, I'll leave about an inch all the way around. That way my good edge isn't the one that's getting banged around and messed up as I work with it and manipulate it while I'm hand quilting. So I'm just going to use my handy scissors. These are the Fiskars razor edged scissors. I like them. They're comfortable. They work well. They're not my fine scissors, so I don't mind cutting through like batting and things like that with them. Yeah, and so like I say, I'll leave, you know, about that much. Just a little rough. I cut my finger cooking. Just a little edge on there, and then I will pull embroidery floss to match my colors. Actually, since I'm on my way out the door, I think I'm just going to pull some navies so that I can get started, and then we'll pull colors when I get back this afternoon. So I'm going to do that, and then when it's all said and done, I'll give it the close trim that you use for, you need for binding and whatnot. You guys know, you know. All right, I'm going to do that. I did want to show you how that red stripe came out in the backing. Look, and I'll back up so you guys can see it. And see, it's offset so it looks intentional and it doesn't create a crease down the center. Anyway, I like it. I'm very pleased with it. Now I'm going to pack up and get to my quilting bee. Oh, the aftermath of being in a hurry yesterday. Let me clean this up and I'll get right back to you. And I'll tell you about how I choose threads and my hand quilting supplies. Give me just a minute. Okay, that's so much better. So much better. Oh, I've got a fan on behind me. So now I'm going to show you, I'm going to turn the camera around and I will show you and talk you through sort of how I go about, it's just kind of a haphazard by feel way that I pull colors and threads for hand quilting, and I'll show you the supplies I use and how I carry it, all the little details. So give me just a minute. Okay, so here I have my, what I call my Marquetta bag. My friend Marquetta Johnson, she was my mentor and my teacher and just a very special, special lady. I have talked about her in many videos. I'll link the predominant one in the description below. But she made this little pouch, and I love it. And it's great when I need to carry more than just, for my binding supplies, I tend to use one of these. The little Band-Aid boxes. It'll hold my needle threader, a pair of scissors, my needles, and some binding clips. And my spool of thread. And for binding, that's all I need. It's quick, it's easy. It's adorable because it should be. If it can be cute, let's let it be cute. But in my little tote, let's dump it out. When I need to carry something with more, I tend to carry this. And I have a few of these. So for this, now I use embroidery floss for my hand quilting most of the time. Because it's cheap and cheerful, I have a lot of it. It comes in a million different colors. It's available lots and lots of places. Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's, you name it, it's available. And I also, like I say, have a lot left over from when I could see and would cross stitch. So yesterday I pulled some blues just to get started. And honestly, to keep myself from being overwhelmed and to keep from having to overcrowd my little carrier, I think what I'll do is I'll just work through in color families. So I'll do all the blue, and then I'll do all the red, all the orange. You get color families. But I have my several colors of embroidery floss because I like to use all the different colors. You know me, how do you make it match? Use more. So that's what I do. And in my little, I think this is a Ruby Star tin, I have, this is a magnet from a, sorry for the middle finger point. This is a magnet from, I don't know, some needle minder that fell apart. But I keep it up there because it keeps those guys out of the way. I've got the thread that I'm currently working on. I've got my sterling silver thimble. And I have a silicone thimble. When my hands get tired, or if I have trouble pulling the needle through a thick area, a silicone thimble is a great tool. It really reduces the amount of grip strength you need to, that little pinch strength you need on your needle, and it can really relax your hand. And then I have these little scissors. It doesn't matter what kind of scissors. I have these, so I stuck them in my little tin. They are very cute. They have this little silicone cap. Use the silicone cap because they are extremely, extremely pointy. Probably a danger to my health since I tend to not wish to be careful, but I'll have to learn. And then in this one, because the eye of the needle that I'm using, and I'll tell you about those in just a minute, is a little bit larger. The Clover needle threader works just fine. Generally, I like the Bowen needle threader. This one, because it will thread a very, very fine needle over here, and I love that. But for this use, this one works great, and I had it. It was handy, so I stuck it in. Now, the needles I'm using, guys, these are old. These have been in my stash a long time. Do you guys have those things in your stash that it's like, oh, that's been there forever, but it's not going to go bad and it's not really taking up any room? That's what these are. These are I think a number 8 quilting between. Now, the reason I like a quilting between for hand quilting is because it's small enough to maneuver, but it's strong. It will hold the thread and go through all the layers with ease. They're very sharp and they're very strong. And I had them. They were handy, so I stick those in there. And the one I'm using, let me show you one really good tip and something I have to remind myself of. So what I'll do is I'll take my thread and I'm going to pull a piece that is about 16 inches long. All right? Not longer. I know everybody wants to do more, but trust me, your thread takes a lot of wear and tear going through all of those layers. It takes a lot of wear and tear. So a shorter length is better. Yes, you have to thread it more often, but that also means I get to change colors more often. So I take it to that. Now to separate embroidery floss, if you'll pull it down like this, can you see? Pull it down like this to where the end is sticking up and just tap on the end. Then you can grab one strand and pull it straight up and separate your single floss from your regular floss. Handy little trick. Then I thread this piece in my needle. I double it over, tie a knot, and that's what I use. And honestly, that is about the perfect length to go right around one of these triangles. So it's working out well for me. That's what I do. And like I say, when I finish all the blue, I'll choose the next color. I'll choose 5 or 6 threads from my case, put the blue ones back, and go on my merry way. It is as simple as that. I'll sit down in front of the big camera in just a minute and talk about how I made this work for my needs and some ideas about how you can make something work for you. And I didn't have to buy anything. Everything I had in my stash, I just made it work. So I'll see you in a minute. Okay, you just saw me work through all of that in real time. Now, let's talk a little deeper about what was really happening there. because this is bigger than just borders and backing. Here's the thing. Quilting is in your hands and your control. Not the patterns, not some imaginary quilt police, yours. This project was oddly sized from the start, as it's leftovers from something else. And when I laid it out, it was off. And that's kind of where the magic happened. I stopped and I asked myself, what does this quilt need? Not what does a pattern say or what do other quilts look like. What does my quilt need? It needed borders. It needed borders, but here's where I broke the rules. I only added them to the sides because that's what it needed. I didn't need to fix all 4 sides and make the whole thing bigger. I needed to fix this out of proportion problem. And then that decision meant that the backing needed to be pieced differently as well. So I did that in a rather unconventional way because, say it with me, it's my quilt and I'm the boss of my quilting. Now, I want to talk about something else that's, I think, is really important. It's the difference between a mistake and a design decision. A mistake is when you do something unintentionally. A design decision is when you choose to keep it. I've turned blocks the wrong way more times than I can count. And sometimes I look at that mistake and realize it's actually more interesting than what I had planned. The moment I evaluate it and decide to keep it, it stops being a mistake. It becomes my voice in the quilt. And that, my friends, is freedom. Your quilt, your hands, your point of view, your voice, your story. This isn't about being reckless or careless. It's about being intentional. It's about developing your eye, trusting your judgment, even and maybe especially when it makes you a little bit uncomfortable, and giving yourself permission to take risks and see what happens. You don't need permission from a pattern designer. You don't need validation from Instagram. You don't need me to tell you. You need to trust yourself enough to ask, what does this need? What do I want? And then be brave enough to answer honestly. And I know you can do it. So here's my challenge for you. I want to hear about your design decisions. Tell me in the comments about a time you broke the rules intentionally or accidentally and it worked out. Or a time you're thinking about breaking the rules, but you're not quite sure. Let's talk about it. We're all figuring this out together. And if this gave you that permission slip you need, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future projects where I am absolutely going to keep marching to my own drumbeat and encouraging you to do the same. I've got a whole playlist of more ways to make it your own right here on the screen. More rule breaking and more permission slips for your quilting journey. And I want you to remember 2 things. Number 1, you are the creative powerhouse in your quilting. Not the pattern, not the right way, you. Your vision, your hands, your choices. That's what makes your quilts uniquely and beautifully yours. And number 2, please never forget that you make the world more beautiful just by being in it. I'm Amy, and I'll see you next time.